Blog Talk Radio.
Om Shabbat Shalom, Holy Way of the Most High. Om Shabbat Shalom, I sense your presence. Om Shabbat Shalom, Holy Way of the Most High. Om Shabbat Shalom, I sense your presence. And I am the light within your soul. In the essence of truth and right, love makes the circle whole. And here we stand in line, waiting for some sacred sign. But to find the balance is the purpose of this time. To restore the balance of the universal mind. And in the presence of my Lord of light and love, everything I see aspiring to be free. And when I call to thee, and come on bended knee, surrender to the all-pervading light and love. Reflections of the one surrounding me with love. And I sense your presence. I sense your presence. I sense your presence. I sense your presence. Within and without, above and below, yeah. East, west, north and south, I sense your presence. Without and within, below and above, yeah, yeah. East, west, north and south, I sense your presence. I sense your presence. In the presence of my Lord of light and love, everything I find in tune with the divine. And here we stand in line, waiting for some sacred sign. But to find the balance is the purpose of this time. To restore the balance of the universal mind. And I am the light within your soul. In the essence of truth and right, love makes the circle whole. And when I call to thee, and come on bended knee, surrender to the all-pervading light and love. Reflections of the one surrounding me with love. For to find the balance is the purpose of this time. To restore the balance of the universal mind. And I sense your presence. I sense your presence. I sense your presence. I sense your presence. Om Shabbat Shalom, Holy Way of the Most High. Om Shabbat Shalom, I sense your presence. Om Shabbat Shalom, Holy Way of the Most High. Om Shabbat Shalom, I sense your presence. Om Shabbat Shalom, Holy Way of the Most High. Om Shabbat Shalom, I sense your presence. Shabbat Shalom, holy angel of the Most High. Shabbat Shalom, I sense your presence. I sense your presence.
Welcome, and thank you for joining me tonight here on Activating Compassion in the Midnight Hour. My name is Jessie Ann Nichols George, and I am your hostess tonight. The music you were listening to at the beginning of the show is I Sense Your Presence. It's by Shemshai, a great group that I met when I was living in the Arizona area. And I want to extend a welcome, whether you're returning or whether you're listening to us for the first time. And I know we've got some first-time listeners out there because for the very first week, we are streaming through TalkStream Live, and we really appreciate being on there with them tonight. And welcome all of our listeners that are coming through that venue tonight, in addition to right here on Blog Talk Radio. Here at Activating Compassion in the Midnight Hour, I look at different ways that compassion exists in our lives, how to remove our blocks, resistances, frustrations, and more. Some weeks I will be discussing different aspects of how compassion is in our life and how it affects our life and the different areas of compassion. Some weeks we're doing different exercises and practical implementations, and then many times, like this week and most of this year, I've got some fantastic guests on the show so that you can learn about their work and how other things complement and work with compassion. I'm also going to be highlighting different musical artists along the way, and for example, about a year ago we had Claire Hedin on the show, absolutely wonderful music there. Jill Mattson was on earlier this year. Stephen Halpern, Peter Cater, both Grammy nominees, were on as guests this year, and I'm already working on some other really amazing guests to pull in that are musical as well for the upcoming 2014. I focus on my own work in helping people find and use compassion in their everyday lives. I've created the Genesis Clearing Statement, which some of you may have experienced on previous shows, and if you've missed that, you can actually go back and catch it in our archives. Kevin Baird, one of our other hosts, did a really great interview on me where we worked with the Genesis Statement on the air with people, and that happened back just before I started my show, so around the end of August, early September of 2012, so that's worth checking out. And I've authored also 4 books, the most recent being You, Me, Life, Dreams, and its companion workbook, which are based on relationships, and my first 2 books, Activating Compassion and its companion workbook. In addition, I've created the Compassion Tour, a multi-state nationwide tour that includes workshops, retreats, seminars, book signings, and fundraising events. And I'm already working on creating a tour for 2014. I know that that's going to include a live taping for a PBS show in Santa Barbara, and you can actually come in studio, by the way, if you're in that area, and watch us film that recording, that interview that's going on there. I know it's also going to include some book signings on that tour and some really great events that look like they're going to be happening around the central coast of California as well. So you can stay on top of all of those things that are happening at jessieannnicholsgeorge.eventbrite.com. There's also an option there for gifting the tour as well, which if you can't make a venue and you just want to help support Get Me Out to some of the fundraisers, you can certainly do that. Now, just a reminder, if you enjoy this show, make certain that you tell your friends, family, significant others, Facebook connections, all those great social media buddies that you've got out there, or anybody else you feel inspired to share it with. They can always come check it out in our archives, and they'll just either use the same link to get in the show that you did today, or they can go to my Activating Compassion Facebook page at facebook.com/activatingcompassion/notes, and they can also go to my website at jessieannnicholsgeorge1.com. So those are all great ways to find the links back to the archives there. Now, before we get started, those of you that have listened into the show before, you know that what I like to do is to delve into the 72 Names of God, and that's Technology for the Soul by Yehuda Berg. And what I like to do is to kind of just grab a little thought for the week, and then this thought goes on to my page of the Main Street Universe tab on my website. So you can always go back and read it for yourself or look it back up during the week and kind of grab, now what was that thought? What were we working on by Yehuda this week? Okay? Now, taking a look at what we've got here tonight, our message from Yehuda, the name of God that's being provided to us tonight is finish what you start. And he actually starts off by saying, whenever you feel like quitting, finish what you start. And the insight that he has with this is obstacles, both external and self-imposed, often stop us from achieving our objectives. It's easy to be excited and optimistic at the start of a new endeavor. Challenges of many kinds, however, often prevent us from reaching our goals. We procrastinate and we postpone, and our passion wanes. Internal obstacles include fear, frustration, forgetfulness, doubt, and laziness. External challenges come in all shapes and sizes, but they're only a test. The imposing proverbial brick wall is usually a soft and cushy curtain, artistically painted and cleverly disguised to look like a brick wall, just to keep us from even trying to pass through it. No one said the road to personal achievement and spiritual greatness was an easy one, but it's a road that can be successfully walked and completed along a picturesque and scenic route. And I think this is really a great thing for us to be looking at, given our topic and our guest tonight. It's very interesting because we're talking about some things that are dealing with life between lives and past life things. And so I think a lot of times this applies very much, understanding that the obstacles and some of the things we're facing are exactly related to those soul lessons and things that we'll be discussing tonight. Now, the meditation that Yehuda provides here with this name is, you're endowed with the power to conclude everything you begin, especially tasks and goals of a spiritual nature. And the way that this name is pronounced, the common name being finish what you start, but the key name here is pronounced Lamed Kaf Bet. Lamed Kaf Bet. Finish what you start. And you know what? That's actually really perfect right now, because with the astrological influences that we have going on, it's all about wrapping up those loose ends right now. It's all about finishing those projects that we started. It's all about getting everything completed so that we can get a fresh new start, because we've got a lot of great things that are getting ready to happen for us in our life right now. So really looking forward to this tonight, and that's Yehuda's message. And again, you can locate that on my tab of the Main Street Universe tab, or my section there on my main page of my webpage, which is JessieAnnNicholsGeorge1.com. Now, a little thought here before we kind of get started on our guest, and this will give you a little something to think about before we take a little break. Have you ever wondered what your soul is doing when it is not in the physical body? Have you ever thought about what it is like when you are not living on this earthly plane? What is happening for us when we are between incarnations? Many are familiar with the concept of past life regressions to explore past lives that we have lived. However, what about life between life experiences? This is an interesting thing to explore, as it can branch into people's concepts of heaven. It can delve into the concept of whether there is any existence between this physical human life for us. I think many have pondered at one time or another what this space is or might be, and what we do when we are there. In much of my studies, there's been a concept that this is like a grand reverie process where we review our most recent life extensively, integrate it into all previous lives, and reflect on what is the next step to take. It also seems to be a space of resting, like a day off from work sort of parallel. In addition, it seems to bring in an aspect of play and enjoyment of being completely free from the suffering that is associated with the human existence. There seems to be that there may be a true gift when we are in the life between life space, which allows us to know our true self and to experience our connection to the great divine. A space of total awareness of all that is, our specific piece of that totality. Being one with omnipotence, or all that is in total awareness. Knowing that we are an individual piece of this whole, yet we are the whole as well. Michael Williams is working to help people explore this place of life between life through a process that is much like a past life regression. Through the use of similar techniques, Michael helps people delve into an understanding of the soul's existence when it is not in the human body. He feels that this provides greater understanding of our soul's purpose, characteristics, ambitions, and skills. He talks about having access to all that we need and want through consciousness. Exploring this possibility that we have access to soulmates, full understanding of all that makes us unique, having access to teachers or guides to help us, can create many thoughts of things. This perhaps parallels the concept of going to school, where life is the school and we have to decide which courses to take for the next semester that will best benefit us in the direction we are headed. However, perhaps a more open form of this concept. What are your thoughts about what happens between lives? How do you visualize this space being? And how do you see this cycle of human existence and soul existence? This week, our guest focuses on a component of compassion that is related to the aspect in my books of finding your truth. This reminds us to be conscious about what we are sharing with the world and what we want to share with the world. It is about knowing your message, which means being conscious of what we really are here to do and who we really are. I'm going to take a short break, and when I return, I will have Michael Williams with us, and he's going to be sharing his work with Life Between Life. And the song that I've got for you during our break is actually by our guest, Michael Williams, and it's called Beautiful Soul. And if you'd like to find out more about the music part of Michael's work, you can do that at www.laboroflovemusic.com. We'll be back in just a few minutes.
You are
Welcome back. You are listening to Activating Compassion in the Midnight Hour, and my name is Jessie Ann Nichols George, and I'm your hostess this evening. You were just listening to Beautiful Soul, which is done by our guest tonight, Michael Williams, multi-talented. You can see there's a whole hypnosis factor and life between lives and music. A whole bunch of things there all at once. And again, I want to take a moment to just say welcome to all of the new listeners that are coming to us through TalkStream Live. It's great to have you on here with us. It's great to have you listening. And if you're enjoying the show tonight, I do want to remind you that you can certainly share this show. It will be available as an archive. They can find the archives through my website, which is JessieAnnNicholsGeorge1.com. Just go to the Main Street Universe tab, and my page under that tab has got all of my archive shows there that you can listen to. Now, I would like to bring on my guest tonight, and that is Michael Williams, CMHT, RMP, and he could probably define some of those letters for us to let us know what that actually is. And I know part of that is related to being a certified hypnotherapist, and founder of Imagine Hypnotics, specializing in clinical, transpersonal, and spiritual hypnosis. He is a certified master hypnotherapist, which is, I'm pretty much sure what that's the CMHT part of things. And he is a spiritual regressionist and Reiki master practitioner. Mike is a member of the International Association of Counselors and Therapists, the National Guild of Hypnotists, and the International Association of Reiki Professionals. He is formally trained in Life Between Lives spiritual regression, a process of experiencing the soul's existence between incarnations. Mike has also released his debut album, Leaving Dystopia, which is where that song Beautiful Soul came from, embracing his energy as a musician, singer, and songwriter. And we're going to discuss his work with hypnosis, life between lives, and past lives. And you can learn more about Michael's work at www.imaginehypnotics.com, and you can learn more about his music at www.laboroflovemusic.com. So great ways to connect with him. And Michael, I just want to say welcome to Activating Compassion in the Midnight Hour. It's so wonderful to have you here.
Well, Jessie, it's wonderful to be here, and thank you so much for that great introduction. I hope I live up to it.
I'm sure you will excel beyond it. There's no doubt in my mind about it. And, you know, Michael, it was really great when I was searching through your music, and you know, it was so fun because so many times when I go into somebody who's doing spiritual music, it has this very ethereal feel or sometimes a reggae feel to it. But your style of music has actually got this rock foundation to it, which is really cool. It's just very different than what I normally get to experience when I go in there. So that was a lot of fun. I just had to throw that in there.
No, thank you very much. Yeah, no, I'm a rock musician, and you know that's why we have the rock album there. But I'm glad you like the album.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. It's very upbeat and everything. So I thought that was great. You know, I would love for our listeners to get to know you a little bit, and so I would love for you to start off by sharing a little bit of your journey and, you know, who's Michael and how did Michael get into doing this life between life work and hypnosis and things that you're doing?
Yeah, I get asked that question a lot. People will ask me, how did you become a hypnotherapist, or you know, how did you get into spiritual regression? It really started, I guess, Jessie, you know, when I was very young, even though I didn't realize it at the time. As I look back now, as you know, as we always say, hindsight is 20/20. But growing up, I mean, I just looked at things differently. I used to say things like the earth is a petri dish, you know, that we're living in a fishbowl, we're being observed, and I remember as a kid being absolutely convinced that Mars at one time was exactly like Earth, and in saying things like human progress was helped along by advanced beings. So I would think these things, and I'm talking about, you know, 9, 10, 11 years old. I had essentially no, you know, connection to institutionalized religion. I was raised a Roman Catholic, but I just could not connect to it. Had some, well, I guess what folks would consider to be paranormal experiences when I was younger, you know, apparitions, that type of thing there, which actually taught me at a very young age that existence as we know it is very different from how we've been taught or told that existence is. So I knew that the bandwidth in which we operated in was confining. It was constrained. That outside of that bandwidth, there was a whole other world or a whole other existence that was there. And then, I had my music career when I was younger. I started music when I was in my teens, and when I was in my 20s, I was really trying very hard to get signed as a band and also to get my music published. But it's a very, very difficult business for anybody who's ever tried it. They will know that. So eventually what happened was I had to go get a quote-unquote a real job, So the real job was I went to work in the corporate world 30-plus years, and I'm just winding that down now as we speak. It's interesting, when I worked in the corporate world, I always felt like a fish out of water. Was never overly comfortable there, although I did well. But I just felt like, it really was something that I was doing, but it really wasn't my calling. But, be that as it may, working there, some very valuable lessons to help me with the direction and the path that I'm on today. And that path allows me to have a perspective where I can help people because I understand what it's like to be in, that, what I'll call that matrix, and then people wanting to step outside of it. I can actually bridge that divide because, I've been there. But then what happened was about 10 years ago, how I actually got into hypnosis and on my spiritual path, I actually had hit a crossroads in my life. I had some significant life challenges that I was going through, which resulted in me asking some, very basic, simple questions, which I'm sure many people ask themselves at some point in their life, which is, what am I doing? What is my life about? And so, with that, I had to, sit back. I had to pause and take a look at my life and assess, look in the mirror and say, what am I doing? And it was soon after that I would go to bed at night, and as I was closing my eyes, and I wasn't asleep, I would start seeing these swirling lights. And I had never seen them before. And all of a sudden I had seen them when I would close my eyes. They were white swirling lights. Sometimes they would be, red and blue, but mostly white. And I would focus on these lights at night, and in the distance I can see they would materialize, and I would see various types of, maybe beings or even see structures or buildings, but they were very much in the distance, and I really couldn't make them out. I couldn't tell who it was or, what I was looking at, but I found it very intriguing. And then one night, I was watching one of the swirls, and it was coming at me, and it was getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And as it was getting larger, a face of a being manifested. And I know this might sound very odd to some of the folks maybe listening to the show, and believe me, it was odd for me also when it happened. But this being manifested, and it was radiating a brilliant white light. The face, it was just a face. And it looked like an ancient Greek philosopher is the best way to explain it. And when this happened, it was as if I was looking at this being from across the table. That's how, to put a perspective on it. It was very close, and they were just looking at me. It was a very stoic look. And there was a telepathic message coming across, and that message was, hey, Mike, it's time to make the shift. It's time to get on a new path. And it was just a feeling of utter amazement. I want to say a bliss. I just felt this very loving feeling coming over me. And after it had dissipated, it just gradually dissipated and went away. I had, opened my eyes. Again, I wasn't asleep when this happened. And I thought to myself, I don't know what just happened here, but I really thought at the time that I had seen God. Come to find out later, it wasn't God. It was my guide that had come to me. And after that experience, I just started questioning everything about my life and existence in general. And so I consumed everything I could find on spirituality and consciousness. And the way I got onto the hypnosis path was I had ordered a book off of Amazon, which was Memories of the Afterlife. which was a Michael Newton book. And I bought the book. It was a pre-order, thinking it was a book on near-death experience, because I was always interested and fascinated by NDEs and the stories that were reported back by people who had near-death experiences. And when I got the book, I realized that it wasn't about NDEs. It was about reincarnation. It was about past lives. And I read the book in 3 days. And after I read that book, it connected all my dots. It made perfect sense to me. And then I said, I have to have my own past life. I have to have my own between live sessions. So I did that. I did that back in 2009. After those sessions, they were back-to-back. Thursday was the past life. Friday was the life between lives. And I left those sessions knowing that I needed to do this work. So from there on, it was just full steam ahead. Completed my hypnosis and regression training. Received all my Reiki attunements. I'm a Reiki master today. And I just never looked back. It's just an extraordinary ride. And that's how I got here. It was kind of a long and winding road, if you will, but everything's connected. There's a reason why we do the things in our lives.
Yeah, definitely. And you bring up an interesting aspect when you're talking about your story there too, that I think happens for a lot of people. And I know for me, I kind of had that experience. A couple of different points that said, okay, it's time to get on the path. Okay, it's time to start doing this, or it's time to start activating this part of things now. And the way things tend to just come to us, where we, I think I'm going to, head down this path and be a candle maker, or I'm going to head down this path and I'm going to do this, and it's like, oh no, you're going to write books.
Yeah.
Oh no, you're going to do these other things now. And so it is very interesting how we think sometimes that we're looking for one thing and we end up going a different direction, as long as we're open to what we're receiving in that process.
Yes, that's the most important part of it, being open, and receiving it.
I agree. So I think I wanted to bring that up because I think that's something that a lot of people go through and they get confused. And I think people think, I've got to have this huge destination point, and that's what I got to stay with. I got to stick with it. It's like, no, you always have that choice to change, and you may only be starting there because that's what's going to help you get to where you're really headed. And we need to be prepared to go ahead and be flexible enough to shift gears like you did along your way. And thank goodness you did, because now you've ended up in this other amazing work, which is so interesting. And as I was talking with people during the week and putting some posts out there, and people were like, oh, this is so fascinating. I saw Michael Williams' work, and there was something that they saw or did with you, and they said, and I had to go and get credentialed myself. So you're already inspiring people out there. I don't know how much you knew that, but
no, that's good to hear. I hope I'm inspiring people, because people inspire me, and when I hear stories like that, it just warms my heart. It's a wonderful thing to hear.
And I love when people share those stories with me, and it was so great putting the post out there this week, because so many people were responding, and they were just sharing these heartfelt stories, and it was beautiful and amazing to watch this opening, and that always excites me when I put a post out there and then people just start opening their heart about their experiences. Now, a natural point, we are going to get into this life between life aspect here tonight, which I think is a really intriguing aspect to a lot of our listeners here. But a starting point for all of this is hypnosis. So maybe you can fill us in a little bit on what hypnosis is and your viewpoint on it. Because I have had a couple of other guests on about hypnosis, but I find everybody's got a little different viewpoint, and we want to know your foundation that you're coming from.
Okay, well, hypnosis is just a natural altered state of consciousness, and we go into hypnosis at least twice a day. I tell all my clients this. We first wake up in the morning, it's that little groggy state, that in-between state, and then also when you go off to sleep at night, right before you go to sleep, again, that in-between state, that's a hypnotic state. And all hypnosis means is that the brain waves go from, from a beta which is your conscious state, down to an alpha, and down to theta, and then delta is sleep. So all it really means is that the brain waves are slowing down. That's all it means. Well, I explain to my clients a lot of times they'll think that hypnosis, there's something magical or mystical about it. I say, look, there's nothing mystical or magical about it. It's just I'm trained to be able to get you to slow your brain waves down. And once we slow the brain waves down, the channels open up. And the deeper we go, the more those channels open up. As an example, and we'll get into it a little later, I guess, with past lives and LBL, when we get into that deep theta state, that's when the spiritual realms open up. And I also tell my clients, highway hypnosis, this is when you're on the highway and you're driving and you're deep in thought. You might be thinking about something at home. You might be thinking about something at work. And you don't remember driving the last 2 or 3 miles or the last 2 or 3 exits. And you're on autopilot. That's hypnosis. When you watch TV, movies, or you're reading a book. An example I use with kids especially is, if they're playing video games and their mother is calling them or their father is calling them and they don't hear them. And the mom and dad will come in and say, didn't you hear me calling your name? And, the kid will say, no, I didn't. I was watching this video game. That's because they were in a trance state. They were in a hypnotic state when they were playing that video game or watching TV. So that's all it is. And but once we get into those brain waves, which are those trance states, we can do a lot of work. What happens is we actually take the conscious mind, which is our waking state, and our conscious mind is our gatekeeper, and it creates our logic. We kind of ask it to take a back seat. It never leaves the room. That's another thing. With hypnosis, you're not knocked out. You can't do anything that violates any of your, your values or your morals or your any of your religious convictions. All it means is the conscious mind takes a back seat and the unconscious mind steps forward. And once we start to work with the unconscious mind, we can start taking situations, issues which are undesirable or unwanted for a particular client, and we can start to what we call reframe the anchors and the triggers. And once we can get that reframe completed, and we do this via exercises under hypnosis. I call them exercises with my clients. Essentially what that means, Jesse, is we get the client to look at a situation or a circumstance or a behavior through a different lens, a more positive lens. And once we get the unconscious mind to accept this new vantage point, this new viewpoint, they're on their way to making a positive shift and making the changes in their life. And that's really it in a nutshell. It takes, it does take a lot of skill. I always, when my clients call me, or potential clients call me, and, they're kind of looking around for a hypnotist to help them, whether they come to me or not, I say to them, make sure you do your homework. Ask a lot of questions with regard to their associations, their level of work, how busy they are, and so on and so forth, because that is very, very important. Because in many states, hypnosis is not licensed. It's what we call a self-regulating practice. And so with anything that's self-regulating, you need to do your homework and make sure that the person that you're going to see is qualified.
I think that's a very good point, and definitely I'm very pro that people are qualified and things like that. And it's kind of like I've done past life regression in the past for people, and certainly there's a lot more certifications out there than when I was doing it actively. But as I've told people say, well, will you do that online with me or things like that? And there's certain things that I will say, no, I won't, because with certain things I want to be able to monitor people, and I can't do that 100% online. So I think finding those people with integrity who are well-trained, who do have an understanding of the processes of how things work, and hopefully, like in your case, have some credentials or something as well there, I think are very valuable for people to search out. I mean, after all, we are tapping into the brain waves, and I love that you brought up that explanation of going into the different brain waves, because I think a lot of people don't always realize that they are in full control, and that's a different explanation than what we've had. It taps into a different area of hypnosis and the way it works. So I really appreciate you bringing that factor up in there.
Yeah, yes, that's exactly right. I mean, you are in total control under hypnosis, and as I mentioned, your conscious mind never leaves. The example that I use is, imagine the conscious mind is driving the car and the unconscious mind is a passenger in the back seat. And all that happens during hypnosis is they pull over and they swap. The unconscious mind becomes the driver and the conscious mind becomes the passenger in the back seat. That's what happens. So the client is in total control, and we have a saying, all hypnosis is self-hypnosis. I have no control over the client. I am a facilitator. I'm a practitioner. And if somebody comes in that doesn't want to go into hypnosis and, is pushing back or resists, then I'm not going to be able to get them into trance. So that's very important, too, because a lot of times when we watch movies and we see television shows, the way they depict hypnosis is completely inaccurate. And I'll have clients come to me and say, well, are you going to make me bark like a dog or cluck like a chicken? I've actually had people ask me this.
I
said,
can
well,
believe it.
Not unless you want to.
It's a natural fear there, I think, for people. Like you say, they see these shows, and there's that aspect of not knowing, are they going to do this and I'm not going to remember it? Are they going to put that hidden command in my head somewhere?
Right.
And every time somebody, does something, I'm going to do something weird, I think those fears are definitely there because like you say, the shows and the TV, but it's definitely not the case and things. Now, you differentiate between clinical hypnosis and transpersonal hypnosis in your work. Can you give some insight to that?
Absolutely. Clinical hypnosis works within the boundaries of the client's perception of their immediate mind-body consciousness. So it's the traditional hypnosis approach to wellness. So there's direct suggestion. It could be metaphor-based, the Ericksonian approach. There are release techniques, or what we refer to as healing interventions like Gestalt or the inner child. We would do current life regression, regress somebody back to what we refer to as the initial sensitizing event. So in other words, if somebody comes in and they have a fear of dogs, I would regress them back to that point in time, the initial sensitizing event when fear of dogs first became an issue for them. And so from there, we can understand what's going on and what anchored and what's triggering in the unconscious mind that's making the conscious mind react a certain way. Other techniques like rerun, future pacing, which is essentially imagery and projecting out to the future. There's aversion techniques and other types of techniques like parts therapy, and I even use some NLP types of techniques when I do my clinical work. So that's the clinical aspect of it. So essentially the client is staying in their immediate mind-body perspective. So when we talk about transpersonal hypnosis, what's happening is we're taking the clinical hypnosis and we're expanding it outside the immediate mind-body perceptions. And we're essentially introducing expanded consciousness concepts into the hypnosis session. So we might be, as an example, bringing in healing light, bringing in the higher self, inner healers, spiritual aspects, inner wisdom. So we're going outside now. This is not something that a client typically would think about when they think about their immediate mind-body. So we're expanding out. And this works in conjunction with the clinical techniques. At least that's what I do. So I use a combination of both. I might start with a clinical and with a client on a particular issue, and then decide during the session that bring in some transpersonal techniques to help them. And it's very, very helpful. What I have found is The clinical by itself can be very effective, but once you bring in the transpersonal, which is that expanded consciousness aspect, you increase the odds of the client shifting considerably. And then the next piece of it would be clients sometimes will ask, what's the difference, Mike, between transpersonal hypnosis and spiritual hypnosis? And spiritual hypnosis is connecting directly with the spiritual or cosmic consciousness. So this would be a past life. This would be an LBL. So this is where we go into regression and we go into a trance state where we can visit guides, teachers, elders, our soul's existence, past lives, between lives, that type of thing there. I hope that made sense.
It did, and actually you answered that because I was going to ask you, what's spiritual hypnosis? I was actually going to lead right into that, but you answered it for me, which I think is a really interesting factor because now we're starting to talk about, okay, now so now you're kind of telling me, hey, you can not only tap into your own mind, but you can now tap into that global mind, even though you're in this human body. And this is an exciting concept because so many people think, well, I can't remember that stuff until I get out of this body.
Right.
And I can't remember that stuff until I'm done with this lifetime. But this is a process, and I was actually taught this many years ago. You can use these techniques to access all these different planes. You can use these to access that soul-level consciousness because in these, it's, I would think, kind of similar to an astral travel experience that, allows us to be free of the human body and thus tapping into that as well as that aspect along with the aspect that we're going into that deeper theta wave.
Right. Well, you're on a very good point, and a lot of people do not think that they can tap into their expanded consciousness. And that's because, essentially, the way our society and our culture is structured, we're taught that that stuff doesn't exist. That's all woo-woo stuff, and, don't waste your time doing that. All that matters is your immediate mind-body experience. That's it. And most people are never taught that they are powerful spiritual beings. And so if you don't know that, and you're never taught that, and you've never delved into it, and you've paid no attention to it, then, of course, the only thing that you're going to look at yourself as is just this body with a soul versus being a soul with a body. But more and more people, Jesse, half my practice, 50% of my practice is spiritual, past life, life between lives. More and more people now are really starting to awaken. And it's a beautiful thing to see. It really is. So more and more people are understanding that they have this ability, that they can tap into expanded consciousness, they can have these experiences, they can seek answers to their questions in that realm, and it's extremely helpful to healing, to enlightening the path, the road that they're on in this life. So it's good stuff.
Well, and I think that's very true, and that's part of why I really wanted to bring you on the show, because you're taking this aspect to a different level. I mean, I've had some hypnotherapists on before that, deal with word programming or different consciousness programming or different things like this. But what's exciting in bringing you on here at the end of the year with this whole big universal transformation that we have going on, planetary, universally, that's happening, and we're seeing more and more people wanting to access this elevated consciousness, and we're seeing more people saying, you know what, all of this basic sales stuff out there, marketing stuff and politician stuff and all of these things out there is not where it's at. I need to get connected with my spirit because I'm just not feeling the fulfillment anymore. And
right.
And I know I'm going to find it with that spiritual connection if I get connected with myself on that level. and what's exciting to me is seeing that this is becoming more and more of a common aspect. More people are saying, hey, I really want to know, because I want to know what's going to help me clear out these challenges and these obstacles. I want to know where this is coming from. If it's not this lifetime and it's not a past lifetime, what's beyond that? And I think there is this huge fascination, at minimum, of what happens when we get rid of this physical body. Where do we go? There's so many different concepts out there with it. Now, hypnosis, I'm guessing we've kind of touched on this, is connected to doing past life regression. It's a very similar process, really. It's just a matter of going into those deeper levels. Is that correct? Or maybe you can shed some light about the past life regression aspect here.
Well, the foundation of a past life regression is hypnosis. And with past lives and between lives, Jesse, what we have to do is we have to get the client into deeper trance states. Right? So I mentioned before some of the trance states that we have. Alpha is light trance state, and typically we can get some work done in alpha state. But where we really want to get the client is into the next trance state, which is theta. That's where the brain waves range between 4 and 7 hertz. And it's there that you can do spiritual regressions, meditation. It's really where the spiritual channels open up. So we have to get the clients very deep. I've had some regressionists say that they can do past lives in alpha state. I do not agree with that. It's got to be theta, because anything lighter than theta is going to be a real challenge. And I'll just say that I really don't think that it could be done, although I may get some debate from some of my colleagues out there. But so the point is that we have to get the client as deep as we can, and once we get them into that very deep theta state, then they're ready. The spiritual channels open up, the memories open up, and they're there. And the one thing I wanted to point out is, I just thought about this, the past life regression is not a reading. Some clients will call me and ask me if it's a reading. I said, no, it's not a reading. With the past life, the client is experiencing the past life for themselves. Okay, so I just want to make sure I get that out there, because sometimes there is confusion between past life regression and somebody doing past life readings.
Yes, right. It is very different, and one can tap into some information, and the other is an actual experience. It's kind of the difference between, going and getting a book and reading about rock climbing versus going out and actually rock climbing.
Exactly right. It's the difference between somebody telling you versus you experiencing it for yourself. And the experience, when you have it for yourself, is very, very powerful. It really is. And
it's not to discount past life readings, because those can be useful.
No, not at all.
However,
not at all.
It is, when you have that experience, it really, I think, really infiltrates the consciousness on a whole different level once you have that actual experience of something. Just like anything, the difference between hearing it from somebody and actually going out and physically doing it is huge, and that's what we're talking about here, is providing that actual experience. And I have to agree with you. I really don't think that alpha is enough of a brainwave state to access the past life region. That's just my experience of doing them, having gone into them, leading other people through them. It just feels like it's too easy to get distractions or something from that state.
Right. And the reason why I bring it up, Jesse, is because some clients will call me and say, I had a past life session, a couple of years ago, and the first question I'll ask them is, how long was the session? 40. Yeah, I do. I ask them that, and they say, 45 minutes. And I said, okay. So I'm not going to say anything disparaging with regard to whoever it is that you saw before, but what I will say is I will spend 45 minutes deepening you. I will spend 45 minutes doing the induction and deepening you to make sure that you're ready to go into a past life. We haven't even gotten into the past life yet, and I've just spent 45 minutes getting you to the point where we can get that door opened. So it's very, very important. And again, the reason why I bring it up is for the listeners, anybody who's listening, is you want to optimize your session. You want to be able to go in and be as well equipped as you possibly can, feel as comfortable as you possibly can, that this session is going to be the experience that you're anticipating, that you're expecting. And so when I do my sessions, as an example, I tell my clients you need to set aside 3 hours because you're going to be in hypnosis between 2 and 2.5 hours.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how long my past life sessions are, between 2 and 2.5 hours.
And I think that is a really good gauge when people are looking around for somebody to do past life regressions with. I think the shortest I ever did a past life regression was an hour and a half, and most of mine were closer to a good 2 hours.
Yes, an hour and a half is it's possible, because if you get a client that goes in deep really fast, an hour and a half is certainly possible. I would agree with that.
Yeah, I think that was the shortest I ever remember doing one, and I would tell people that you need to leave that extra time, and also, when people are doing this type of work, they need to make sure they have some filtered, pure water to help with grounding as they come out, because I do believe it takes a little time to integrate. If they have some time that they can maybe walk around before getting in a car and driving and those sorts of things. I think they're just smart little extra things to think about. You don't want to have something that you've got to run off and go to, because as you say, when you go into a past life regression, you don't really know how long somebody's going to need to be in there. It's not like, okay, it's going to take you 5 minutes to do this and 10 minutes to do that and this sort of thing. You get in there, you don't completely know how deep somebody's going to go or how much they're going to experience or how much is going to come up. So it's not like you can say it's absolutely going to take 2 hours or 3 hours. It should be a time period, like what you're providing. That's
exactly right, because you don't know. Every session is different. It's not a cookie-cutter process. It's not one size fits all. Everybody has different experience. Some people will go in very fast, and like you said, this session might go an hour and a half. Others, their rate and pace is a little slower, so that session may go 2.5. I've had sessions go 3 hours for past life, and that's pushing the type of time that you would allot for an LBL, a life between lives. So I agree with you 100%.
Mm-hmm. So, Michael, how do past lives, is there an overlap into our present life, or can they overlap our present life, or what are your thoughts on that?
You can have overlap, and this doesn't happen very often, but it can happen. So we have, I explain to clients that we have essentially what I call 3 scenarios, 3 incarnating scenarios. One would be, and it's the most common, where there's no overlap. 2 would be, and this is less common, where we have partial overlap. So this means that the client goes back to a past life, and they pass in that past life, where they cross over, they die, in a timeline that overlaps with their current life. And typically that might be 5 years, something around there. It's not. I found that it's not a lot, but sometimes about 5 years or so, maybe 1 to 5 year overlap. And clients will ask me, how did that happen? And the way it happens is that the soul's energy it resides in the spirit world, and the soul sends a certain amount of energy into an incarnation. And then if it really wants to learn real quick and doesn't want to wait, doesn't want to make it linear, they can have some parallel lives going on. And what the soul does is it sends some more energy into another incarnation. So you can have that overlap. And when you have the type of overlap I'm talking about, the reason why the soul is okay with that is because it knows that it's going to be getting a big piece of its energy back, because the past life is going to be ending soon. So it has that flexibility and that latitude, that little trade-off there. So that's scenario number 2. Scenario number 3, which is I have found to be very rare, is where the soul will incarnate into 2 different lives at the same time, 2 concurrent physical life incarnations. And this is really the ultimate fast path to learning. And this is, because souls have a desire to develop, and many souls want to develop at an accelerated or advanced rate of pace. And so when they do the concurrent lifetimes, that's really the ultimate in learning and, really pushing the envelope.
What would that be like for somebody? Because I think that's a new concept for most people. I don't think they're familiar with that kind of an overlap. So if somebody was living 2 lives at the same time, like, how would they know that, or what kind of feeling would they have or sense would they have with that?
Well, first, in their conscious state, they would have no awareness that they're living 2 lives, and the way it comes about is when they go into the past life and they cross over and they're with their guide, the client will get a perspective from the guide who will explain that you have 2 incarnations going and they're overlapping. Now, what I have found happens is that's about all the information the guide's going to give. Guides are very, very, they don't spill the beans. In other words, because you're here to learn your lessons. You're here to learn lessons and you're here to develop. So they are very picky about what it is that they're going to tell you. So that's about all they're going to tell you. And the reason why they do that is because what's human nature? Human nature is, let me go find the other piece of me.
Let me go find myself.
Let me go find myself, right, someplace else on Earth. That's if they incarnated, the overlap is here on Earth. I mean, it could be on another planet also. But, and that's the thing. Guides are very careful about what it is that they share. They do not spend their time essentially humoring human interests, wants, needs, that type of thing there, curiosities, because it's not about that. Exactly.
And I'm glad you brought that up, because I deal with that a lot with people that, sometimes I just have to say, this isn't what your guides are going to share with you, because you have to figure this process out.
Exactly.
That's why you're here, is to figure this out. We don't get to know everything up front. You don't get to know all the end results. You have to take a few steps and walk a path and see if it's working, or if this feels right, or things like that. It's about learning it. It's about that choice. When we come here, I think sometimes when we separate from divine spirit or presence, then we have to make that choice over and over again to reconnect with that energy. I think it's a very similar aspect there. So yeah, guides are not going to tell you that. You don't get the shortcuts and the easy versions. They're here to help you do it yourself, in a sense, just enough to keep you out of trouble sometimes, I think. But I'm glad you brought that up. Yeah, that's important. Now, I know a lot of our listeners are probably wondering, okay, Michael, you can get me into this deep state, right? You can get me into this theta brainwave thing, and I'm going to be under there for a few hours, and and this is all fine and dandy, and maybe I'll meet my guides, and maybe I won't. But how do I know that what's coming into my brain, what I'm seeing, how do I know this is the real deal? Like, how do I know that's actually a past life and not something my brain's just creating?
That's a very good question, and some clients will ask that, especially before they come in. They typically don't ask that question after they come out of the session because they just had an experience that defies anything that I guess that they've experienced ever before. But what I explain to clients, first of all, Jesse, is they'll ask me, are the memories real? And the first thing I say to them is, that is for you to decide. And what you really need to focus on, first and foremost, is the lessons. Understand the lessons. Go there first. And the wisdom that came through. Now, that being said, what happens during a past life is the experience is fluid, lucid dream for many clients. So versus constructed memory. Constructed memory would be you're making it up. So what I ask my clients to do, I do a little exercise with them. They said, well, okay, Mike, so what's constructed memory? I said, okay, it's 1475 in Italy. Go. And they're like, go where? What are you talking about? Tell me what you look like, how old you are. What are you wearing? What's your house look like? What do you do for a living? So on and so forth. You couldn't do it. You could not do it. But when you have a past life, all of this just flows. And the biggest component of a past life, which is really what builds the foundation to create the experience for the client, is this sense of knowing. They know about themselves. Even if they sometimes don't have the visuals yet, what I find is for many clients, the visuals come after the sense of knowing and the emotional states solidify and come together. So the sense of knowing, what that means is, I know who I am in this life as Mike. Jessie knows who she is in her life as Jessie. In those past lives, you know who you are. You know what you're about. You know what your life is about. And the more we get into the past life, the more and more that sense of knowing just comes together. And it doesn't take a long time, maybe one or two stops along the timeline, and the client has a pretty good perspective of who they are in that life. And it is very spontaneous, and it's very fluid, and it's all connected. And it creates a storyline. And that's the thing. And it creates a cohesive storyline. So at the end of it, by the time the client gets from the point where they first landed in the past life to when they pass in that past life, they understand everything that happened. They understand the implications. They understand the lessons. And that to me is the telltale sign that what's happening here is real, that they are going back, they are experiencing a past life, because you couldn't do that if you had to construct scenes and try to create a storyline. It would be impossible to do. But that's my perspective, and I tell my clients, you have the session, you'll need to decide.
That's interesting, and I really like that you're encouraging people to decide for themselves, because I do believe that inside you there's something that resonates. There's some sort of familiarity there. There's something that you just know. Yes, I've had that experience. Yes, I get it. I remember these lessons. I remember dealing with this. I remember sensations and feelings and different things associated with these experiences. So I do like, though, that you encourage people to make that decision for themselves. I think that that's a very important thing, and I think that too many people, they want to be told this is how it was for you, or this is, this was it, or things like that. And that aligns, I think, with a bigger aspect of feeding our own independence, feeding our own aspect of learning for ourselves.
Right. It's the empowerment factor, right? People have, it empowers them.
Yes. So we've got this foundation now from hypnosis and past lives. So what is the life between life aspect, and how does that work?
Okay, so life between lives is your existence in the afterlife in between your incarnations. So when you're not incarnating on Earth or some other planet, you're in the spirit world. And what life between lives does is take you into the spirit world. And you get to experience what it's like, what your soul's existence is like when it is in the spirit world, and what that realm is all about. And it's very, very powerful. And past lives are powerful in unto themselves because it gives people the big picture. They understand that there is a higher calling. And but when you get to LBL, when you get to life between lives, it really turns it up a notch. And I refer to it as, it's really it's the ultimate in, true expanded consciousness when we do the LBL work.
And I think that this is quite interesting because, again, I think there are plenty of people who have experienced the past life regression aspect, but now the life between lives and taking this in this different direction is really opening and really empowering. Now, like in past lives, you mentioned you got to have somebody in a theta state. Are you accessing the theta state as well in the LBL?
Yes, but it's a very, very deep theta state. So now, with the LBL, the Michael Newton approach, you're going to have to set aside 4 to 4.5 hours. That's what a client's going to have to set aside. There is a significant portion in the beginning, probably an hour to an hour and a half, where it's the induction plus a lot of deepening. We want to make sure that client is deep, deep, deep in theta state. And that's where they need to be to have the LBL.
Okay.
So they have to be in a very, very deep state.
I would think having, I naturally just connect out there, but not everybody does that. I would say, definitely, and this is, again, another good gauge when people are looking at these aspects of what is reasonable time-wise that you need to allot, that you need to work with. And I would imagine going into this LBL would be very powerful and very intensely moving. I would think that some of this work, past life regressions can certainly do it, but I think by the time you get into a life between life, this could really touch into a lot of feelings and emotions, and maybe even at times kind of disorientation, trying to piece some of this together or trying to come back into this body after experiencing that.
Yes. For many clients, it's really amazement. They are just blown away by what it is that they experienced, and when they're in the session, what they're experiencing. Now, when they're experiencing it in a session, they do have wonderment. It's funny, some will have wonderment. Others, it's interesting. Once they get there, they're almost self-navigating. It's like when they get there, it's like, oh yeah, I remember now. I know where I have to go. And others, clients, I have to spend more time helping to navigate them and guide them. So, it's kind of runs the gambit. Now, you mentioned before, just about the timing piece of it, and you had mentioned that, I think you were saying that, you can get into that space, pretty quickly. But, when we're working with when I'm working with my clients, many people haven't done any type of work like this. In other words, they haven't done any meditation. They've never had hypnosis. They've never had that. So when I give the timing or how much time it takes to do this and that, it's based upon a client that comes in that really has never really had any of these experiences before. They're just coming in cold,
Yeah.
right? So I just want to make sure I put that when I talk about the time it takes to do this and that. It's the average client that comes in really never had hypnosis, and so that's the context.
Yes, and to clarify on my side of that as well, Michael, I've been involved in doing past life regression work and this type of work, and working with getting out there into those spaces for, let's say a good 30 years or more. So
Okay.
I'm not coming into it like a lot of your clients or a lot of our listeners would be coming into it. I've had a lot of very conscious work that I've done along the way in order to allow myself to get out there, because now I'm very comfortable with just jumping right out there. That's a lot of training. We're not talking the average person. That's why I said, it's kind of an exception there with that. So yes, I think that's one of those things, and it's been years and years of training to be able to just kind of jump out there like that. And even then, I still have to take time. It still takes time to slow my breathing down and to really allow my thoughts and things to go and to release and to let go and get out there. So it's not like I'm just jumping out there in 2 minutes or 5 minutes or anything like that. It still takes quite a bit of time to relax the body down.
Yeah, and you know how to prepare yourself, right? You know how to get yourself prepped. Right, yeah.
And even with all of that, I'm still probably taking a good 15, 20 minutes to get to that brainwave state, I would say, easily. And that's with all of my experience there. So, but yeah, I think that this is a very interesting aspect here when we start to get into this. So, here again, how does somebody know what is the experience that they're having when they get into this life between life space? You say some people are feeling as if it's familiar, and it's like, oh yeah, I know what to do. Well, is this scenery or this space that they go to, is it kind of different for everybody depending on maybe what their spiritual views are or their belief systems are? Because I think that some people go, I'm going to walk through those pearly gates. I'm going to, and there's those pearly gates waiting for me, or there's the golden city waiting for me, or whatever their concept is on there.
Well, there's a lot of consistency. There's a lot of consistency. In other words, the experience can be different for each client, but the differences might be they might spend more time over here, another might spend some time here. Some clients may only go to a couple of stops. We call them stops. Others may go, to many more. So what's different is where they're interacting in the spirit world, who they're going to see in the spirit world. Spend more time here, less there. But the spirit world in itself there's consistency with what gets reported back. I mean, uncanny consistency with what gets reported back. That's the thing. That's what I find to be the most fascinating piece of this thing. And that's how I know when I do this work that this exists, that the spirit world is real, and it has structure and process. because when my clients go in, they're reporting back that structure and that process. And they describe themselves as a non-physical being. They are energy. They are light. Typically, what happens is after they pass, they will then go through a process of energy clearing and cleansing, and they go through that for a bit, and that's after they meet up with typically their guide at the gateway. Then they will go for energy clearing and cleansing. Once they do that, they may go to visit their soul group. They may go spend time with soulmates. Always they have a review with their guide. Always. I have yet to do one where there was no review with the guide. Typically it's a review of the life that they just lived. They talk about the lessons learned and any additional insights with regard to the client's current life or patterns of behavior or lessons they needed to learn over multiple lifetimes. The guide will defer that to the Council of Elders, where sometimes called the Wise Ones. And clients will go see the council. Now, the interesting thing about this is all these things I just kind of mentioned here, many clients have not read the books. They have not read the Michael Newton books. They heard about life between lives or between lives. They get inquisitive about it. They want to understand, what it is. So they're kind of exploring. And the interesting thing is that whether they read the books or not, the process and the stops, and they're all there. It's quite fascinating.
That really is interesting, and that's got to give you some kind of sense of confirmation that if we're all kind of tapping into this similar experience and having some of these same aspects there happening, that indeed there's got to be, that collective mind consciousness out there. Because it doesn't seem to me like we could all be tapping into the same sort of aspects and scenario unless we were. So I
You're
find
right. It's very interesting. It's consistency, and to me, it's validation. It's absolute validation. I'm fascinated, Jesse. Every time I have a session, whether it be past life or doing between lives, it's never a dull moment. I'm completely fascinated. And there are times, it's interesting, what I'm finding is more and more now the guides will ask me as a practitioner if I have any questions. So it's not just me asking questions that the client gave me to help ask and to guide to guide the questions with the teachers or the guides. They will ask me. They will say, now, do you have any questions? So the client will say to me, my guide wants to know, Mike, if you have any questions you'd like answered. So what I'm starting to see now is it's expanding, where the guides are full of information and they love to share the information that they can share. And they're not just confining it to just the client. They are reaching outside. They're asking me, So it makes for really an unbelievable session. It's exceptional because you've got all this dialogue going on and you have all this information being shared and all this insight and wisdom coming from the divine realms. It's just, it's fabulous.
That's really great. So, Mike, when we start to tap in this, what can people really learn with a life between life session? I mean, I know you've kind of touched on this a little bit, but with this type of work, why is it important, and what can people learn from it?
Well, it's important because clients will become truly aware of their soul's immortal, divine existence. It opens the aperture for them. It really gives them an understanding that there's a higher calling, that there is a divine. And they get to understand their soul's core characteristics and ambitions. They get to understand their soul's learning and educational path. They get to learn about their skills and specialties in the spirit world. They interact with their soulmates and their soul groups. Of course, they receive the wisdom from their and guidance from their guides and teachers, from the spiritual elders, knowing and embracing their soul's purpose, and probably most importantly, seeing the divine in all life. Right. So these are the types of takeaways that they'll get from doing a life between lives and being in the spirit world.
And so as people start to learn what their soul purpose is, do you find that kind of is a core that seems to happen incarnation after incarnation? Like there's somebody consistently will come into incarnations, for example, as a healer, or they have a core energy as a healer, or a core energy as a researcher or a scientist, or do you...
Yes and no. Let me just, many times they will do incarnations where if they are a healer or a researcher in the spirit world, I mean, that's what their forte is, and they'll take that into their incarnations, and they'll do that type of work. So as an example, and I hope I'm answering your question, if they are a healer in the spirit world, that's their specialty, these would be folks that would incarnate. They might be doctors, they might be nurses, and so on. But there are also times when they step outside of their specialty, and they step outside of what their comfort zone is, and they have to go take on different roles, different experiences, and different dynamics. Now, what I've been told, with my clients and also with my own, sessions that I've had, my LBLs, is today in the world today that many of the warrior souls have come down to earth to get us over the hump, to get the vibration of Mother Earth to where it needs to be. And the reason why the warrior souls are here is because the warrior souls know how to persevere and keep pushing ahead. As tough as it can be, they continue to plow ahead and get the job done. So what I'm finding is that when I do the sessions, a lot of the folks that are in the chair, a lot of my clients, they have had many lives where they were warriors, whether it be in the Crusades, whether it be during the time of the Roman Empire, and so on. So that's a very interesting aspect that I'm seeing that when my clients come in and report back to me.
And that is interesting, and I could see there being different aspects of things, of even people being a healer in different war situations, helping people through those times, even if they're not specifically going out into battle, for example.
Right.
On things. So I think we definitely have a variety of those different aspects happening. I mean, this is absolutely fascinating work. So maybe you can give us a little bit of idea of when somebody comes into you, and you've kind of touched a little bit on this, but let's say I'm going to come into you and I say, Mike, I want to get an LBL session. How's this going to go down?
As far as how the dialogue goes between me and the client?
Yeah, and what are you going to do when you take me through this session? I come in as a client, I want to go through this session. How's that going to work?
Oh, okay. Yeah, no, fine. So typically the process is, if you use the Newton approach, the first part of the session is essentially the past life regression process. So you do the induction, and then you regress the client through the current life. You do a couple of stops in the current life, and these are essentially just exercises to get the mind acclimated to going back in time and noticing details. And then we back them into the womb. And then we spend some time in the womb. And, we'll ask, how does it feel in the womb? What do you notice? Why did you choose these parents? When did your soul integrate with the physical body? How much of your soul's energy did you bring into this life? And what are your lessons in this life? So, we're dealing with the current life at that point in time. And then what happens is, Jesse, we take them and we regress them back now further, past the womb, and then we get them into a past life. So when you do an LBL with the Newton approach, you're backing them into a past life because that's kind of the segue. Now, you don't spend as much time in that past life with an LBL as you would with a past life session. You just want to get them into the past life because what you want to do is you want to get them to the point where they get to the death scene and they cross over. And that's the transition point. And then once they pass, we transition them and their soul heads up to the spirit world. And they get to what we refer to as the gateway. And the gateway is they'll be met by a guide or a teacher who will then take them and help navigate and guide them through the rest of the stops that where they need to go in the spirit world. And so once they are there, and I explain to my clients, is once you're in the spirit world, you're going to have certain stops within the spirit world. And as I mentioned before, you may spend time, getting energy cleared, visiting your soul group, soulmate. You'll have a review with your guide, that's for sure. You're going to see your council of elders. Sometimes that doesn't happen. It depends on whether the council decides they need to see the council, but I want to say probably, 95% of the time they're going to go see the council. Sometimes they may go to visit the body selection area where they explain why they chose the body they chose for a particular lifetime. And they may also go up to the library, the Akashic Records. They may go visit where they have their specialties. Perhaps they may go to the classroom where they're teachers. Or they may go to where they are healers. And they may even, some clients want to know their soul color and number of incarnations, but I'm finding that more and more that the guides and the council are not always looking to reveal that. Mm-hmm. They look at that, as I mentioned before, as a human construct, and it's not important to the spirit world. It's funny. One time I did a past life, and of course, even with a past life, they go in to have after they pass and cross over, they spend time with their guide. So they said to their guide, one of the questions they wanted me to ask was, "What's my soul color?" And the guide was just flipping through all of these colors, just flipping through them all. I said, "Pick one." They have quite a sense of humor. What do you want to be? It's not important. So I'm finding that they're spending less and less time answering questions about soul color and how many incarnations. That's a human interest, human curiosity, and it's really something that they don't dabble with. Did I answer your question?
Yes, definitely.
How it works?
And I think that this is very exciting work that you're doing with all of this. I was going to ask now, when you do these sessions, is this something that is recorded for people or not? It's just they just tend to remember this, or?
I record them.
Okay.
Yeah, no, it's because they will remember most of the session, but they are in such deep trance state. They could have, some level of not remembering the details. They'll remember the main points, but there's a lot of stuff that goes on, in between the main points that they remember. So the recording is very important. And what I tell my clients to do is just to, after the session, just take a few days and just be introspective and just reflect on the session. Don't listen to the recording right away. Just assimilate. Just take it all in. And then at some point, later down the line, if you want, listen to the recording and see if there's stuff there that you didn't remember or forgot, or helps you to expand upon what it is that you did remember. Oh yeah, I remember that now. That type of thing there.
Mm-hmm. Michael, I definitely want to give you a few minutes here to go ahead and share with people the best way to contact you, anything that you have going on with your work, all of that good stuff.
Okay. Well, the one thing I wanted to add is I am working on a proprietary approach for life between lives regression. And the approach I've taken, Jesse, is reducing the amount of time to get into the spirit world and have the experience typically from 4 hours down to 2 hours. And I'm working with some clients now to fine-tune the process. But the key to it is that there's no past life component, whereas the Newton approach, to get into an LBL, you have to go through a past life to get to the LBL. I've removed that aspect of it. And in its place, what I'm doing is I'm taking the client through the chakras. And by starting at the root and then ending up at the crown, I can get them into the spirit world, and I've been having very profound results that have been reported back so far by the clients who have participated so far. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to be adding the program shortly as an alternative to the Newton approach for LBL. So probably within the next month or two, I'll have it up on my website. And so clients who come to see me will have a choice between the two approaches. I'll still do the Newton approach for life between lives, but I'm also going to be offering the process that I'm putting together. So I just want to put that out there. Now, to get a hold of me, as you mentioned earlier, my website is www.imaginehypnotics.com. I am out of the Raleigh-Durham area in North Carolina, and if you want to give me a ring, you can call me at 919-745-1225, and my email is imaginehypnotics@AOL.com or imaginehypnotics@imaginehypnotics.com. And that'd be the best way to get hold of me.
Yeah, I think that's incredible. I'm loving what you're sharing with us about your proprietary approach, because being a person that's also done a lot of work with chakras, I find that there's some pretty powerful spaces to get into going through that route and naturally elevating the energy that way. I find to be quite powerful.
The results have been, Jesse, very profound. I had a couple of clients that had experiences that probably rival experiences clients would have if they had taken ayahuasca. I'm telling you, it's really. So I'm very, very excited about it. I have to do more work to make sure the consistency is there. I'm not going to put it out there unless I'm very comfortable that the success rate is going to be, very consistent. But it's very promising, and I'm very excited about it.
Well, it's a very natural way to raise the energy. I mean, to raise up, and it's just a natural cycling of the energy to me. In that sense, so I would say I'm very excited for you because everything that I know in that process, like I said, working energetically with the way things raise and shift into the crown, and then when I trained with some of my teachers along the way, there were aspects of shooting out of the crown chakra into the universe. And
yes.
And it was a really, really interesting experience to have doing that. And the energy naturally elevates. You naturally lighten up, so you naturally make that shift from the weight of the human body connection to the spirit and the ethereal going through that process. So my mind's kind of ticking a little bit at the moment going, oh, yeah, I can see that. I can see how that was going to work really, really well for him in this process. And I could see that definitely that could create some automatic connections, especially well, for all levels of people, wherever they are in their spiritual path, but I would think, especially for those that have done some work, that are maybe not needing to go back into the past lives. They're like, hey, I'm totally comfortable with that, and I just kind of want to go explore this other realm now.
Yeah, what I found, I stumbled upon it actually. I was doing a session, and I was actually just, working with somebody that I know, and just piecing some stuff together, and I could not believe the results. But what I found was, as we take the client through the chakras, that it is it's just almost a natural deepening. I start them at the root, and you go through, and by the time I get to the crown, they're so deep and so ready to move to the next, wherever it is they have to go, which happens to be the spirit world. So, like I said, I'm very excited about it, and as I sat back and looked at it, I drew the same conclusion that you drew, which is, well, it would make sense because it seems like the natural flow of things. So I'll keep you posted.
Yeah, definitely. I look forward to it because this is exciting work, and I think, like I said, this is going to be very valuable work and is very valuable work, especially as we continue to evolve as human beings. And even though we're still in this third dimensional body, our minds are evolving into this higher dimension thought process. And so I think this is going to be really useful for a lot of people, especially with the indigo children and the crystal children that are coming up, that, as well as those that are in my generation and other generations as well. Just getting some of that connection and understanding, I think it allows us to handle what we're dealing with here on Earth much better, in a much more comfortable space.
Right. I'm getting a lot of young people coming in now, which is really just warms my heart. I'm getting people coming in for past lives at, 17, 16 years old, 19, 20.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
It seems like it's natural because they really do want to know what it's all about, so they know how to move forward in things. So it's wonderful. Well, Michael, it's really been a pleasure, I have to say, to have you on the show because you've brought in a whole new dimension of energy and insights for people. And I noticed that I had people in the chat room every now and then. I'd see this wow, pop up like I'm blown away. This is amazing. This is incredible information. So definitely I know that people are responding to this and they've been very attentive. And I've noticed in the chat room, too, that there's been a lot of people that have come in and they've stayed today and not bounced around. They've been very interested in what you've been sharing with us. And so I thoroughly appreciate your time, thoroughly appreciate you sharing with us this evening, because I know it's very late on the East Coast there. But it's been an absolute gift to have you here.
Well, Jesse, thank you so much. It's been wonderful being on, and I really appreciate the invite. And for any of your listeners, if I can answer any questions, they can just email me, and I'll be more than happy. If anything, that they want to follow up on that I did not answer, even in the chat room, just email me, and I'll be more than happy to connect.
And you've got another music album coming out soon. Is that true?
I am working on a second album. I have 3 tracks down. Basically, the basic rhythm tracks. I'm shooting for next year sometime, probably late next year. I've learned from the first time not to put hard and fast dates down for this type of thing, because it's a creative thing, And but yeah, probably late next year. I would say November, December time frame. I'm going to have a second album out. Perfect.
And again, go ahead and explore things. The song that we had during break, Beautiful Soul, was by our guest tonight, Michael Williams. Again, you can check out his music work at Labor of Love Music nichols.com. Very different, very rock style. I played probably some of the more mellow side of his music for rock, but it's fun to go in and check it out. And also, you can hook up with him and check out more of his work through his website at www.imaginehypnotics.com. Those are both in our show descriptions. And thank you so much, Michael.
You're very welcome, Jesse. Thank you very much.
And I just want to remind people as well that my books on relationships have been released, and you can find the links to check those out and purchase them at JessieAnnNicholsGeorge1.com. And they are designed to help you activate the perfect relationship for you. And you'll learn how to find, develop, and maintain your perfect relationship. You'll learn how to understand what your partner is thinking, feeling, needing, and how to communicate in ways that will strengthen your relationship and avoid a lot of the drama out there. And I do want to mention that any purchases on this book, be it through ebook or the paperback version, through the end of December, I'm donating a portion of those proceeds from the books You, Me, Life Dreams, and also You, Me, Life Dreams, the workbook, to Live and Let Live Farm Rescue. You can check out more of their work by going to liveandletlive.farm.org, and also we did an interview with them, I believe it was back in September of 2012, which you can catch in the archives as well. So to find out about that special, you can go to my website, JessieAnnNicholsGeorge1.com. It's all right there on the home page for you. And you can also go to, again, my page on the Main Street Universe tab, and that will also share information about the interview that we did with Live and Let Live. And then I'm working on putting together the next Compassion Tour. You can stay on top of the events for that at JessieAnnNicholsGeorge.eventbrite.com. As they come up, I'll be starting to post those in the near future as they come together and come into place. And if you'd like to find out more about the work I'm doing with Compassion, connect with me, check out my blog, purchase products, look at the services I offer. I've got video tips up. I do a new video tip every single month, and I just put a brand new one of those out. You can listen again to the archive shows, all of that stuff through my website, JessieAnnNicholsGeorge1.com. And there's a great section there for Main Street Universe, which you can follow all of our hosts there. You can catch our upcoming shows as well as our archive shows. You can learn a little bit about the people that are part of the Main Street Universe network here, and that information is all listed at the bottom of today's show description. The December special I have, those of you that know me, I have a special that runs every month, and my December special deal is my books Activating Compassion and Activating Compassion, the workbook. Now, they are available for $4.99 each in the paperback, and they're normally $12.99, so this is an amazing deal. And the ebooks are available for $1.99 each, and they're regularly $9.99. So if you're looking for a very cost-effective gift, or maybe you need a stocking stuffer or something like that, you can gift these items for people. Even the ebook version, you can gift it to them. So it's a great, inexpensive gift that's got a lot of something there for them to explore. And again, on my webpage, JessieAnnNicholsGeorge1.com, right there on the home page, I've got all the links, the promo codes, everything like that you need on there. So that's a great piece of information there. And then don't forget that we've got several shows here on Main Street Universe throughout the week. Sunday nights we have Darren Bouquet, who's a reader at Madame Laveau in New Orleans, doing his spiritual insights. He does readings on the show, really wonderful work there. Kevin Baird is on Monday nights with his show Walking on the Sidewalk. Actually, he's joined together, and there's also Starseeds that follows up with him. It's kind of like two shows in one there. And he works with his Horizon Oracle Journeys deck, and that's a deck that he himself created. You can check that deck out more on his website at templeofgaia.com. Tuesdays, we have Susan Weed, who is sharing her work in herbs and natural plants. Wednesday nights is our flagship show, and that's got Daniel, Janice, and Brett hosting that show. And they do all different types of things, from topics to, having guests on from time to time. And then Queen Mother Amaku is doing some periodic shows with us as well. She looks into the Egyptian culture. And then, of course, Friday nights, we've got Activating Compassion in the Midnight Hour. And I have to, again, say welcome. And I'm so happy to have all the listeners coming in now from TalkStream Live. Wonderful gift to have you listening in on the show. We're here every Friday night, by the way, with this show, different guests coming up, and you can check out upcoming guests and upcoming shows, by the way, as well on my page on the Main Street Universe tab of my website at JessieAnnNicholsGeorge1.com. And I want to thank you so much for being here tonight. I look forward to seeing you back here next week as we delve more into activating compassion. And don't forget, if you've enjoyed the show this evening, share it with others. It's available at this same link in our archives, or go to my webpage and find the archive show there. And I'm going to leave you tonight with a song called Yearning For. It's also known by the name as Over and Over. It's by Shimshai, again, a group that I met in the Arizona area. And I also want to let you know, if you like Shimshai's music, go check out their website. You can connect with them on Facebook as well. Really wonderful guy, wonderful group of people putting together this music. And their website is www.shimshai.com. That's SHIMSHAI.com. And I know that sometimes he's got little free music clips that he puts out there, so it's worth connecting with them, and it's worth checking out their website. Really, really great. They're performing everywhere, even, all around the world they're performing. So no matter where you are, you might be able to catch a performance of them. Thank you so much. I look forward to seeing you again next week right here on Activating Compassion in the Midnight Hour. May you enjoy the rest of your week and weekend, I should say. Have an amazing week and many happy holidays, because a good chunk of the holidays, we have the winter solstice and Christmas and all those great days coming up. Many happy holidays to you until we see you again next week right here on Activating Compassion in the Midnight Hour.
And if I could see what makes me blind, I would soar to the edge of my mind, and to touch what seems unreal, just to show you the way that I feel. And we are in time with time, one with the season of change inside. And we are in tune with the tune, caught in a balance of sun and moon. Deep inside, the light within, shining to show you it's here to begin. When all I have is all I need, I will soar to the edge of eternity. And we see it eye to eye, one within love to be for the divine. And we're walking hand in hand, caught in the balance of God and man. Over and over, life is your lover, learning to walk just a little bit slower, whispering secrets, I bet you can't keep it. No turning back now, this time we reveal it. One to another, all will discover the essence within the most beautiful lover. Time is still turning, the love is still burning. Deep in your spirit, your heart is still yearning for. Yearning for. ask for shall be received. And we see it eye to eye, one within love to be for the divine. And we're walking hand in hand, caught in the balance of God.